Folks, my name's Jenny. I go by New Uke, New York on some parts of social media, and I'm here today with another ukulele tutorial to share. I teach ukulele both in person in New York City and also online to my Patreon patrons, to YouTubers at large, and to people across the world who want to learn with me over Zoom. And I have been having an awful lot of fun the past couple of years creating a series I call one-take tutorials. And that's what these are. That's what this is today. One-take tutorials is when I sit down and record a workshop, a tutorial on a song, on a technique, from start to finish without any editing in between, because I'm not a video editor, and I also don't get to do ukulele as my only job. It's one of my favorite jobs, but I have a lot of day jobs and freelance gigs I have to do to pay the bills. So whenever I have time, and as my Patreon patronage allows, I like to come on here and create some tutorials for folks that I think haven't been covered 1,000 times on the internet already. There's lots and lots of great ukulele teachers online. I learn from a lot of them. I support a lot of them on Patreon. And so I know you have options, but for those people who like my teaching style or who have not found another video on this yet, although there are some out there, and we'll talk about today's topic in just a minute, I want to create helpful and useful and interesting and fun content. And I also post covers and original songs and videos about songwriting. There's lots, both free here on YouTube and also over on Patreon. Come join us. And a special thank you to my Patreon patrons at all levels who really help support me so that I can take more time to do this. One-take tutorials are often about a topic or technique. Sometimes they're about a specific song. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that has been a request. It's been requested several times. And I wasn't sure that I could improve on the advice that's already out there, but what I can do is collect it in a different way, right? So maybe it'll hit people differently, or maybe in addition to some of the other great resources out there, this will be helpful. The topic is, the question that I get asked is, what do I do if I can't figure out how to coordinate singing and playing ukulele at the same time? This is a very common question, especially among beginners, but even if you've been playing long enough that you don't really consider yourself an ukulele beginner before, you might still have problems singing and playing at the same time. And we'll talk about why that is as part of this video, but I thought, I'll go ahead and tackle this topic today because in last month's office hours with my patrons, which is a Zoom that we do every month just to chat and to work on songs and answer questions and restring our instruments and all kinds of stuff. It's just sort of free form. The topic came up again, and some of the people who were attending that Zoom had some helpful tips. I had some of my own helpful tips. I sort of collected and collated everything together. I took some notes and I made a handout that I will put on the free public Patreon post that you can get the link to in the description box in this YouTube video. So you can go there without joining Patreon, grab the PDF if you want, and also look around at my other free materials. And I do teach, or lead rather, not teach, 4 free jams every month. So you can join those without joining Patreon, but the info's all on Patreon. Let me know what you're looking for if you can't find it. But for today, we're going to talk about that question of how do I sing and play at the same time? And I'll share with you the tips that we had and also give you some examples. And I also want to mention just at the start of this video that one of the reasons I haven't done this video in so long is that there's a great video out there already that I will link to in the description box from the very popular and for good reason ukulele teacher Cynthia Lynn, who is a YouTuber with a huge channel and a huge following, and I actually work for Cynthia as one of her Patreon community and Facebook community managers, so full disclosure there, but she doesn't pay me to plug her. She has a great video though of how to sing and play at the same time. I believe she uses a song Stand By Me for demonstrating, although it's been a while since I watched that video, but I'll link to it in the description box so you can check that out and see if that is helpful to you as well, or even more helpful than my video will be. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why, first of all, and I'm going to check my notes to make sure I'm saying what I want to say off to the side here, but why is it that it's tricky? Why is it that everybody has trouble? I think people who are hard on themselves when they're not able to sing and play at the same time maybe have thought about, but maybe haven't thought about the fact that your brain is doing so many things already when you're playing when you're playing ukulele, you've got to have two hands coordinated in most cases. People have different abilities, but most of us are playing with two hands. You've got a strumming hand doing rhythm and sometimes, picking patterns, or you may be combining picking and strumming. There's all kinds of different techniques you could be doing with your strumming hand. And there's also all the chords that you've got to make with your other hand, and sometimes techniques and skills that you're doing that make it do muting and things like that. I have a whole video on left and right-handed muting. So there's lots of things you can be doing separate from, both hands are not doing the same thing. And then, you've got to keep it in rhythm, so your body's working on that. You want not only the timing, but also the sound to be right, to have clean sounding chords when you're playing them, or single notes. There's a lot going on already when we're playing, and that's part of the reason why, even though ukulele can be a good instrument to pick up and learn a few easy chords really quickly, it takes a lifetime to master. The people who are really excellent, superb players, not that needs to be anyone's goal, but they've put in the hours. I always joke that obnoxiously the answer to almost any question about ukulele is practice more. If you're asking about how to do something, practice more time. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a lot of fun and get to a level that we enjoy with less time. It just means you do what you can, and if you want to achieve something that's more taxing or more difficult, then it takes time. And it also, in my mind, means go easy on yourself when you're not where you want to be, because it isn't instantaneous. People like to talk about ukuleles as if it's like super easy instrument that anybody can master immediately, but that's not the case. And we all have different learning styles and different levels of skill, and again, time, attention, energy. It's going to vary from person to person. Where you get in 2 years, maybe where somebody else doesn't get for 4 years, or somebody else got there in 6 months. It's the best thing we can do actually in that kind of or that kind of topic is just not compare ourselves to other people, but it's natural, especially if you're in the online ukulele community, to see other people doing things and want to do that too. But it all takes time. So your hands are doing a lot, your brain is doing a lot when you're playing a song. And when you then add in singing, that's even more elements, of course. It's not just one thing either. Singing is, again, it's melody, it's rhythm, it's the lyrics. If you're singing words and not la 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 or humming, each different aspect of it is something your brain is having to do at the same time that you're playing. It's kind of a miracle that we are advanced enough creatures that we can coordinate all these things and make speech and do them all at the same time. So if it takes you some time to be able to do them all a coordinated way, then that makes sense to me. I think that we can all be a lot kinder to ourselves and let it take the time it's going to take. But of course, if you can work on it every day or every couple of days, even for, as Cynthia says, 5 minutes a day, it's going to come. You will get there, and that is something I truly believe. And you can always work with an independent teacher. I'm not just plugging myself here. There are probably in your community in-person teachers, which is great if you can find an in-person teacher. But there's lots of us online too if you need to work with somebody on skills like singing while playing. All right, so how do we do it then? What I've got for you in this video is a bunch of ideas, and these aren't all going to be for everybody. Again, we all learn differently. You'll find my videos, I tend to say things a lot of different ways or say the same thing multiple times, which is that you have choices and you need to do what works for you. I'm kind of a broken record when it comes to that phrase. You shouldn't feel like you need to do things the same way that I learn or the same way that I like to do them. So of course, some of the things I suggest are going to click for you and sound like great ideas, and some of them might be like, yeah, you could still try them if you're interested, or if you try something else and it doesn't work, try the thing that you didn't want to do in the first place. But you don't have to follow all these ideas, and they're not all going to be right for the same person. Also, if I've missed something and you are watching this video thinking, hey, why didn't you mention this thing that really helped me learn to sing while strumming, sing while playing, then please put it in the comments so other people can learn from you. I think that's a great idea. All right, so my first tip, and I've heard this from other people as well, is that when you are having trouble singing and strumming or singing and picking at the same time, you should probably pick a song that you know really well. This should be one of those like shower songs, pocket songs. You don't need to know how to play it really well, but that would help if you already know the chords and the rhythm and you can strum it and like you know how it goes and you could kind of play it, you know, in your sleep almost. That would be helpful. But at least choose a song that you can imagine in your head, that you can think of, whether you think you're a good singer or not. And I fully believe everybody gets to sing whether or not they can carry a tune well or not. But whether or not you feel like you're a great singer, you can think through it in your head. You can hear how it goes. You could sing it in the shower even if you don't remember all the words. The song makes sense to you. It feels straightforward. It doesn't feel tricky or taxing. Now there are songs we want to work on that are trickier or that are challenges, and that's great. I'm not saying don't work on those songs, but they're maybe not the best songs to start out figuring out how to play and sing at the same time, because as I said, you're doing so many things. Let's simplify some of them if we can. So use a song you know really well, and you can feel how it's supposed to go in your head, even if you can't make your body do all those things yet. Also, it's great if that song already has chords that you know. So if you think of a song, you would be like, oh, this would be the perfect song. And then you look it up and it has 4 chords you've never played before in your life. That may not be the best choice. Again, if you already have a song you've been working on, or maybe you're in a jam group and there's a song you always play, but you just can't get yourself to sing along to it in the right way, then that's probably an even better song. But if it's something you've never played before, it might still work if you look it up and the chords are approachable. Now, that might mean that you need to transpose it into a different key, either for your playing or for your singing or both. And I have a whole video series in this one take tutorial series that's specifically about transposing to make it easier to play, to make it easier to sing, so you can check that out if that's helpful to you. But do try to find something that you feel like you can work with. And if you're having trouble coming up with ideas, you can go to a website like Jim's Songbook, like there's the Robert G Songbook. Many clubs have their own songbooks that I can find online pretty easily with the search. And also I'm going to show you here on the screen, I have a beginner packet for my play-alongs that I will attach to the same free Patreon post that you can get the PDF about tips for singing and playing on. So you can pick that up too if you want. Look through the songs in here. What do we have? We have 100 different songs in this songbook right now, and by the time you watch this video there may be more, and there may be different ones because I am planning on updating this in 2025. But if you look through this list of titles and see a song that you're like, oh, yeah, that's a song like I know from my childhood or I've listened to 100 times. If it sounds familiar to me, then this is the beginner songbook. So most of these songs have not as many chords and not as difficult chords as, say, my mixed level songbook. But for example, I was flipping through this and I was thinking, what might be a good song for somebody? And I ran across Paperback Writer. Now, whether or not you want to play the picking riff doesn't really matter, but when you look at the actual chords, you get pretty simple chords. 3 of them are 1 finger, 2 of them are related to the G, and you can actually play this with even fewer chords if you want. You could substitute that G or G7 for each other, so you could just pick one of those and do all the Gs the same. You could do all the Cs as just the regular 1 finger C chord on the 3rd fret of your A string and skip the C7 and the C major 7. Those are just in here to give a little embellishment. At its heart, this is basically a 2-chord song. And finding a song like that, another example would be Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, which is all G and F in the same order all the way through the song. A 2-chord song would be amazing for working on strumming and singing if it's one you know well. Of course, if you find another song and it has more chords, ideally they're chords that you know. So that might be something that you might like to do if you don't feel like you already have the perfect song in mind. So then my next piece of advice would be to separate out those skills. So your brain's trying to do a lot of things when you do them all at once. So think about these 3 things as separate. Think about singing, think about your chord hand, and think about your rhythm hand or your strumming or picking hand. And separate those out as much as you can. So get really comfortable with the chords on their own. You can just practice going through the different chord changes as many times as you need to make them fluid, and so you know how you want to get from one chord to the other. Practice the strumming on its own, and for that I recommend doing something I like to call scratch strumming. There's other names for this. I didn't make that up either. But if you loosely hold your chording hand, which for most people is their left hand, around the neck of their ukulele, the fretboard, just loosely, lightly on the strings, and then you strum, you should get a scratching noise, as opposed to if you press more, you'll get sounds. But if you lightly press, you're going to get a scratch. And you can do any strumming pattern or picking pattern that you liked and practice it this way without having to worry about what your chords are doing. And so practice those two things separately until they're both so smooth that you feel like you want to try putting them together. So you can, new strumming and picking patterns, I often practice this way before I try to add the chords to them. And of course, you can do it in any order. You can work on the strumming first, you can work on the chords first, whatever works for you. And you can switch it up. You can feel like, oh, I don't quite have the chords yet, but today I want to work on the strumming. But I would separate those things out. And then when you're ready to put them together, I would still do it incrementally. You can try, of course you can do whatever you want. You can try putting everything together at once. But if it's frustrating to you, I would back off. I would do things like go slower, use a metronome. I would do things like single strum, so that I'm only strumming where the chord changes. And then I'm waiting the appropriate number of beats until the next chord change, and then I'm playing that next chord. That can be really helpful when learning to strum or to play chords, but also when adding the singing on. So get comfortable with each element, get comfortable with the rhythm you want to do, get comfortable with the chord changes, and then get comfortable with the singing. Be comfortable with how the melody goes, the rhythm, the lyrics before you start playing. And sometimes that means, we have a song we think we know, and then we start to sing through it and we realize, oh, I really only know the chorus. I don't know the verses to this. That may not be the best song, or you may need to do some more study of how the song goes before you're ready to put all those elements together. So some other ideas for practice. The rhythm is really important. Finding your beat can be part of the glue that holds the whole song together. So tap or clap the rhythm, like listen to it. Find the original song recording, find a cover you really like, find another ukulele player's cover or a ukulele teacher who's teaching the song, a play along video. So something like that would be great to listen to. Clap the rhythm, tap your foot, nod your head, do something to get that rhythm into your body. That can really help. And then when that is feeling good, then start doing some scratch strumming. You don't even need to have a strum pattern at this point. And I have a whole video on intuitive strumming. If you want to think about that more, just strumming as you feel it. But you can just kind of start to strum along with the beat. Like see if you can find that beat where the chord changes. Sometimes you can hear it in the music. See if you can feel that. It's usually either a 4 pulse or a 2 pulse, but sometimes it's a 3 pulse or a 6 pulse. Try to find that pulse that you're feeling in your body, and you do some strumming or some picking along with it. And then if you want to, if you're aiming for a specific strum pattern, like you're playing this with a group and you all want to do the same strum, you can of course do that too. Start trying to add that in while you're listening to this play along version. And if you're scratch strumming, it doesn't need to be in the same key that you're in, because you're not making any chords, you're not making any music, you're just doing rhythm. So you can practice a strumming pattern along with any song that you're listening to on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or whatever it is, without it being in the same key. If you want to add the chords in or the singing, then you're going to need to be in the same key as that. So again, you could transpose what you have, you could retune your strings, you could use a capo. There's many different methods that I go over in my transposition series to match the key of an original artist, or sometimes teachers will specify on their chord sheets whether this is the original key. The ukulele teacher, John from the UK, is someone who's well known for often using original keys or telling you how to get the original key, like put your capo on the 2nd fret or whatever it is. So you can find things like that if you need to, or you can make your own play along video. If you get comfortable playing the song and you're not adding the singing yet, you can play the whole thing in rhythm. You could use a metronome to keep yourself on the beat if that's helpful, and then you can use that video just for yourself. You don't need to post it anywhere. Just play it back and try to sing along with that without playing. It's really helpful to practice that skill as well, to do some singing along. Listen to the song whenever you can. You don't need to have the music in front of you even. I like to put on songs that I'm trying to learn to combine all the singing and playing and do. I like to put them on when I'm showering, when I'm washing dishes, if you're driving a car. I don't get to do that in New York City, but if you're commuting, those kinds of things, put that song on and listen to it repetitively. The more it sinks into your brain, the easier it's going to be to combine these different elements. And then you can also sing it a cappella, which means with no music at all. So like you don't have to be listening to the song and think about how it goes, think about how the melody goes, how the rhythm goes, that sort of thing. Another thing that I like to do is, whether or not it's the song that you're aiming for, just get some more time playing with a group if you can. And I had to start a group in my area, so if you want a video on starting your own ukulele group, feel free to let me know. But you may or may not find one in your city, in your neighborhood, in your, part of the world. But in general, if you can find a few people to play with, or a lot of people to play with, whatever you can find, and play with them regularly, it helps in a couple of ways. One, it's kind of like you can sort of hide in a crowd a little bit. If it's a friendly group and you're not like working on a performance level sort of thing, then people don't generally usually snark too much if you make a mistake, or if you try something new, or if it doesn't go quite right. In almost every group, there's that person who usually speeds up a little too much, or who, gets the wrong chord change. And I don't see very many other ukulele players frowning at that person. Usually it's pretty much everybody's there for the love of the music, which is, I think, the best kind of group to find. But also you can let them carry the singing when you're working on your playing, or you can let them carry the playing when you're working on your singing, and just do what you can. So again, you can single strum the chord changes and try to sing along with the group, and then if you need to drop out because you got behind or you got your vocals in the wrong place, then you can let them sing a little bit and then come back in when you feel comfortable. But that's a great place to start combining those skills together. A really easygoing live group can be really helpful. Also, you can hum the melody, or la la la, or ooh, if you're not able to sing the words yet. If that's just one more thing for your brain to have to do, keep that simple. We do this in choirs a lot, when I'm in choirs, where especially if a song has tricky or really wordy lyrics, we will do it on ooh or ah or la, and we will not make our brain do the words yet. And that can help with combining your strumming and your singing at the same time to do that. And then when you're ready, maybe start throwing in the words on the beat. So this is something Cynthia teaches in that How to Sing and Strum at the Same Time video that I found really helpful. And let's go back to that Paperback Writer chord sheet so that I can show you what I'm talking about. One thing you can do as you're going through a song, before you're even playing it, maybe you're listening to the version that you are sort of modeling or using as a play along, you can clap or tap along and try to find the word where the beat changes. Now, even in a chord sheet like the one I've made here, there could be errors. So you could find that their person is wrong. I have typos too, where they're wrong about where the chord changes, or it's different for you because of how you're singing it. That happens as well. But if you're doing Paperback Writer and you're thinking, dear sir or madam, could you hear that I had a clap and sir at the same time? That's also where it's written in that the chord changes. So probably it's pretty likely that that chord changes. Oh, it won't highlight that for me, but the chord changes there on sir, and that's also a beat, dear sir or madam. Now you don't need to know music theory. It happens to be the one beat or the down beat. You're actually starting singing before that one beat sinks in, which is why we say dear before that. That's called a pickup. But whether or not you know that doesn't really matter. If you can find those places where the chord changes and the word happens at the same time, I would underline those or circle them on your sheet, on your, whether you've got it printed out or on your computer, on your tablet. If you have the capability of circling, highlighting, underlining, it's really great to notice, okay, here's where this happens. And even if you're playing, like this song, you played G7 for a long time, you could find some other words in there that come in on a beat like that. Maybe you use a metronome and you make the first beat louder than the next three beats so that you can kind of see, okay, where's my one beat every time? Dear sir or madam, would you read my book? It took me years to write. Will you take a look? It's based on a novel by a man named Lear, and I need a job. So, you're still playing the G7, but you've got years, based, and need, where the beat comes in strong again. And if you can hear that, if you can feel it in your body, that's great. But you could also underline and just say those words. So you could be playing along and just do, sir, years, based, need. And it may sound silly, but it's actually a good way to kind of sink into where those beats change, even if the chord doesn't change there. And if you're in a group, you could do that. Like you could let them keep on singing and you could just come in on those words. That is something that has helped me figure out songs and how to put them together before. So if that seems like it might work for you, I do recommend it as a technique. And if you have, of course, the chords written over the top as opposed to those inline in brackets chords like I've had here, you can do the same thing. Again, sometimes they're going to be out of place. They're not going to be in the right spot, but you can, for yourself, figure out sort of where those moments are, and whether you hum or ooh or la in between them, it can be a nice intermediate step of getting to singing the whole line. Do you want to sing that first verse along with me? I won't do the whole little walk down thing here because that's kind of tricky. I'm just going to do the C all the way through that for Paperback Writer. So let's try this together. Just try to sing along with me and play the G7. You can do single strums. You can just hit the beats, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You could do 1 and 3, 1, 2, 3. You could do island strum like I'm going to do to keep the beat, but whatever is working for you, let's try it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Dear sir or madam, will you read my book? It took me years to write. Will you take a look? It's based on a novel by a man named Lear, and I need a job, so I want to be a paperback writer. Paperback writer. If that was really hard for you to sing and strum at the same time, then again, I would separate those skills out. I would simplify it. Of course, if you don't know Paperback Writer particularly well, then choose another song. But just as an example, I think that can be really helpful for starting to coordinate those. But walk it back. Just do 1, 2, 3, dear, 2, 3, 4. That was read 2, 3, 4. You can just speak the words 3, 4. Take a look. It's based on a novel by a man named Lear, and I need a job, so I want to be a paperback writer. Paperback writer. So speak the words or leave them out and just say them in your head or tap your foot. It's good to keep track of where they're going, even if you don't say or sing them out loud. But that is something that you can do too. And if it's hard for you to to progress from the G7 to the C, then take the rhythm out of it and just practice G7 to C for a while, so that when you get to that, you feel more confident with that chord change. Walk it back to as basic a place as you need to, and then start layering on the different elements until you can combine it all together. All right, I'm just looking to see if there were any other tips that I wanted to include that I've written on my notes over here. I think that's pretty much it. One thing I will say, and this will be the last thing on the PDF for you if you pick it up from my Patreon, which, again, has all the things that we've already talked about. Give yourself time. That is a really important thing. Don't tell yourself you're a bad ukulele player if you can't sing along. Some people don't even want to sing along. There's nothing wrong with not singing along or playing only instrumentals or letting somebody else do the singing. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you have the goal of singing and strumming, also remember to be kind to yourself as you're learning to do it, because give yourself credit for all the other things you're already doing. And then adding singing on top of that is adding not just one element, but multiple elements contained within the singing. It's all got to fit into exactly the right jigsaw places in your brain in order to work. But it's pretty amazing that we can get there. Accept where you are now. Resist comparing yourself to others. Keep it fun so that you keep playing. If it gets to be a drag, do something else. Do a different song, learn a picking pattern, work on a different technique, go to the jam group and let them sing and don't even worry about it. Do some scratch strumming and don't do the chords and just sing a song you love. Play the radio or your music on shuffle and just strum along to it for fun. All these things inform each other. So if you spend some time working on something else and it's not how do I sing while playing, it can actually help it come back together faster when you come back to that later. Yeah, and switch songs when you need to. I think I just said that. And finally, the final thing on the PDF is believe you can do it. Because as I keep reinforcing, you can get there. You probably will get there if you don't give up on it, and you're probably closer than you realize already, because these things do just take time. And again, it is a very, very common question for especially beginners, but also people who've been playing longer, who have not been singing, to ask, how in the world do I coordinate all these things? So you are not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken, and you can get there. And feel free to come and practice your skills at my 4 free public ukulele play-alongs every month, especially because if you're playing and you're watching on Zoom or YouTube, while there are limitations to that, and it's sad that we can't all hear each other playing, one of the really great things about that is that you can hear yourself, but no one else can, and you can hear me leading the song, and it means that you have even more permission to try something and not do it the way you want to. I wouldn't call that failure, but if you don't do it exactly like you would want, nobody hears you but you and anybody else who happens to be home with you or sitting in the same room with you. But you aren't bothering anybody else on the Zoom. You're not throwing me off as the leader of the jam, and you can always come back to the recording later in my beginner play-alongs. Those recordings, you can find them all on YouTube right now. I'll put a link to the playlist of all the past ones, and you can, play a song and slow it down in the YouTube box. YouTube has a little gear icon in its settings that you can slow a song down quite a bit, even painfully slow. And I don't know if I mentioned that actually slowing things down, I think I said it at one point, but I didn't dwell on it. Slowing things down can be a great way to simplify. It can feel frustrating because you want to do the song the way you think it should sound, but to slow it down and work on these elements at a more measured pace is a technique when learning many different things. I mean, it's true for dance, it's true for, lots of things that lots of musicians use it for practice. Even when they're not trying to sing and play at the same time, slowing things down and being able to do them slowly makes you better when you speed it back up. So that I guess, if I didn't talk about that more earlier, that would be my final plug for you, is don't be afraid of slowing it down, even painfully slow. It is sometimes a little hard to sing painfully slow with the song that you're playing painfully slow, but speed it up as you get more comfortable, and you'll get to a place where it feels better to sing it as well. All right, that's the end of this video. I've been accused of being chatty, and that's okay with me. If you watch this whole thing, thank you very much. Drop me a note in the comments. Let me know what of any of these tips seems to click the best for you, or if there's other ones that have worked for you. And feel free to send this link to your friends who are having trouble singing and playing. I will be preparing more videos like this, so also give me your requests for other techniques, questions, songs you want to learn this way, and we'll do more of these one-take tutorials in the future. Thanks again to my patrons for the support. Join us on Patreon for a month or more if you like, and I'll see you on the internet, folks. Bye.